Welcome to the meeting of the Artists and Tradition Bearers Working Group of the Bayou Cultural Collaborative for the month of August 2024. I'm Mark DeWitt, co-convener of this group along with Lily Mard. And we are very pleased this month to have as our presenter, Paddy Bowman, founding director of Local Learning, a national network for folklore and education. And the title of her talk is Working, Teaching, Learning, Living Around the Year, Exploring the Seasonal Round. So welcome, Paddy.
Thank you, Mark and Lola.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to see friendly faces here. I asked you all to print out the seasonal round earlier. If you haven't done that, you can just use paper. Marcia did her homework. Annie did her homework. Maida, you're just going to have to use a pencil and paper.
You could create your own as well.
Susan did it. Yes, thank you. So we're going to be considering how the seasonal round affects our environment, our occupations, our pastimes, and how we might use this knowledge in our different workplaces. We're going to be coloring and sharing and brainstorming. But first, we're going to play the culture game. Lola and I are going to call out some cultural elements. And if this is something that you're familiar with or that you do, you're going to raise your hand. So, Lola.
Yeah. And if it's helpful just to view all of us in the gallery view, you can see everyone's hands raised. All right. The first question is, who plays on a team? Raise your hand if that resonates.
Who lives on a bayou?
Oh, who collects something?
Who plays an instrument or sings? Look at that, everybody but me.
Who leaves the knife in the king cake box?
That's just wrong. Who belongs to a book group?
Who likes to hunt or fish?
Who decorates your house for Mardi Gras?
Who eats potato salad in your gumbo?
Who's gone to a powwow?
Who owns a pair of shrimp boots? Do they have to be white?
Well, yeah. Who has a spiritual practice?
Who speaks a language in addition to English?
Who's an educator?
Who has attended a blessing of the fleet?
Who practices an art form?
Who lives north of I-10?
Who wears a toboggan in winter? Amit? I gotta show you this. Let's see. March, I couldn't see your hand. Do you wear a toboggan in the winter? No. Well.
I should say not yet.
Okay.
Is that just another word for the hat? A hat?
I'm trying to get my slideshow to work. Let's see. How do I get the next slide to work?
See, if you click it, are you able to advance it?
That's what I hoped.
Let's see.
Let's see.
Right arrow or space bar?
Let's try again.
Who's analog by nature?
Let's see.
A little half and half.
Why is this not working?
You're a hybrid.
I'm hybrid. No, it's like I'm making one. Wait, from the beginning. That's the problem. Okay. There we go.
Whoa.
So if you're not wearing a toboggan in winter, what do you call this hat?
Uh,
I would call it a beanie.
A beanie.
Ski hat.
Yeah.
Call
Well,
it
I work with Lisa Ratchey, who's from Iowa, and we've worked together for years. And we play the culture game, and she always ends with who has used a kaibo. Have any of you used a kaibo?
Nope.
I don't
Well,
know.
kaibo is the name of porta potties in Iowa. And everybody knows them because there's a big bicycle race across Iowa, and it's like 15 miles to the next kaibo. So I was talking to her. She lives in Chicago. It's really cold, and I said, "Be sure and wear your toboggan." And she said, "Why would I? Why would I wear a sled?" I said, "No, your hat. No." So they don't call it that. But her husband is from East Tennessee, like me. He wears a toboggan. So as we think about those things about doesn't everybody do that? We're probably looking at folklore. And when I'm working with teachers who think that folklore is dead and in the past or belongs to recent immigrants, we have to start unpacking their personal folklore so they can see that it's dynamic and living. And indeed, they have plenty of folklore. So this is one of the activities that we came up with for Louisiana Voices, and thinking about, what we do around the year. So speaking of winter and toboggans, let's see if I do any better at getting to my my PowerPoint. Do I have to start it every time, Mark?
no, you should be able to click on it, or hit the space
There we
button.
go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if we consider, this was revolutionary for me. I'd always thought of the year like in a line, a calendar. And Jack Santino, a folklorist who studies celebrations and holidays, had this little tiny drawing of a seasonal round in his book All Around the Year. One of my graduate students, a Spanish teacher, a high school Spanish teacher, blew it up. Her students were going to Mexico and they were going to be living with host families. And she was concerned that they didn't have enough Spanish to be able to talk with the families. So she made this seasonal round in Spanish and had the students fill it out with their families and take a blank one to their host families. And then they all had something they could talk about. Look at Christmas. What's going on here? You eat tamales? What's with the posadas? We don't do that. So it just became a great lesson for how our traditions change during the year. This is for the Northern Hemisphere. I had a man in one of my workshops who was from Sub-Saharan Africa. He said, you've got the solstices all wrong. So I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I do. It's very Northern Hemispheric. How does the seasonal round influence culture? It's in our families, our communities, our jobs, schools, institutions, certainly the environment and the landscape, but it's also in our futures. And that's where I really think about the Bayou Culture Collaborative and thinking about the future. It's shared traditions as well as unique traditions. When you do this as a group, you'll probably discover that some people have something absolutely unique to their family or their community that you've never heard of. So it could be an individual thing, a family thing, a whole community seasonal round. We have our local, regional, and national traditions. Of course, it's environment, landscape, soundscape. I just started noticing about 3 nights ago, katydids, which happen in the fall here in Central Virginia. So we can hear the cicadas and the katydids. Climate and weather, sense of place, occupational culture. I love occupational culture. And our personal identity. So agriculture, play, recreation, our hobbies, our sports, weather sayings, weather beliefs. I was in the Pilates class yesterday and a woman said that she couldn't get her hair cut because it was a full moon. She had to cancel her appointment. And none of us had ever heard about not getting your hair cut during the full moon. But we've had that amazing blue supermoon. So there are a lot of different ways to look at the seasonal round. You can use this in any subject area. I've done it with music. Mark, what's the music around the year? Games and play, foodways, clothing and hairstyles, traditional crafts and arts. So this is what my year looks like, my personal year. And there I was at NAEA in the spring, where I got to see Marcia, and of course St. Patrick's Day because of my name. Mardi Gras is one of those movable feasts. It depends on when Lent falls, and I think Lent depends on when it's the moon cycle. Other holidays like July 4th or Christmas are set, but we have movable feasts. I love Groundhog Day because there's a chance winter's going to be over. January is when my book group chooses the selections for the year. So we have birthdays, the American Folklore Society meeting when I'm with, my people. So I'm going to show you, this is, I don't know, I can't remember, this must have been Lafayette, but this was a French seasonal round worksheet that we did. And you can see she's got her little Mardi Gras thing going on. This is an art teacher in Atlanta who drew this like that. They look like Pez containers to me, but it's just such a joyful way to approach the seasons. She even filled in inside. This is a teacher in South Carolina who didn't want to talk about her year. It was a very spiritual thing for her. There might have been some loss. I'm looking at the black there in June. And so when you're doing this with other people, you can share the hard stuff or not, and just model for the level that you're comfortable with. Do you put in the anniversary of your divorce? Do you put in the death of a pet? You may not. You may, you have levels of intimacy that you can use to model with other people. Lindsay is a teacher in Goose Creek, South Carolina, enjoyed this so much. She blew it up so that all of us could see what her year was like. And this is the overtop Boise art teacher who just went berserk. She was just, and everybody's like, no, her again, her again. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask you guys to color. It's time to color your seasonal round. And while you do that, Mark's going to play some Magnolia Sisters for us while we sit and color. Nada, you can color with a pen. You don't have to have markers.
Ve do do, tora du lo lo. Ve do do, cola colinette. Ve do do, tora du lo lo. Maman a préféré un petit peu la bouillie. Pour ses petits soupers cette nuit. Ve do do, cola colinette. Ve do do, tora du lo lo. Ve do do, cola
While people continue to color, I'm going to go back and screen share.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. There we go.
Thank you. So one of the ways that I use this in teaching is, I'm trying to get it to move. There we go. To make collages. And after I show you some examples, I'll show you how to make the base for a seasonal round collage. Maida, you'll appreciate this. I was just always having people draw them. And then we were working with George Zavala, one of the city lore artists, one year. And George is like, well, how can we make this into art? I said, well, it is art. We're drawing on it. He said, no, let's make collages. So everybody went home and dragged stuff out of junk drawers. And we ended up, and this was the class that had been together and gotten very close. And people were sharing some really hard things. I mean, one got up and cried and other people were laughing. But you don't do that unless you've got a close relationship with people. And given how short workshops for teachers are now, we no longer have 5-day institutes. You're lucky to get a whole day with teachers. So you don't build up that kind of a relationship. But here's some of the really inventive ways that teachers have done this. And I know that they have done it with their students. And this is a teacher in Utah who, she just went for family birthdays. That was it. That was it. They had that many kids and that many birthdays. Also in Utah, the young woman at the top used the spoons from her lunch. That's her and her parents on the couch when she's home from college, and they just watch TV on the couch. It's one of her favorite times of the year. In that same workshop in Logan, Utah, this woman is in a farming family. And look how short their growing season is. I mean, that's nothing. How do you even get a tomato out of that? South Carolina teacher was trying to talk her school into recycling and was getting a lot of resistance. So she just chose this theme of it's not easy being green, and things that she was trying to do as a teacher in her school throughout the year. Another South Carolina teacher used fabric instead of markers or paint. And notice all the bugs in August. We can all identify with that. Some bonfires in February. Anita Singleton Prather is a Gullah artist, and she couldn't even stay in a circle. She just had to go big. Anita went big. So I want to now ask you all to share some of yours. Marcia, let's see your seasonal round.
I have to say it's not very illustrative, because I'm amazed that I just moved to Minnesota, and last year I was at the Minnesota State Fair and I spotted Tim Walz in the crowd before there was, like, I mean, he was there in a t-shirt, and I said, Governor, I'm a new resident of Minnesota. And he was great and welcoming, and now he's all this flutter. And in the meantime, as a new resident of Minnesota, my first friend just died 2 months ago. And we're taking care of his dog right now, so I may have to leave because the dog's got needs. But so I was just using the round to, it was almost like meditative to think about what can happen in a year. You know, I lose my first friend, taking care of their dog, met the possible, hopefully, Vice President of the United States. And so it's not illustrative, it's just like a lot of lines.
A lot of life. And Marcia, I know this is not your first time to move to Minnesota. You've been there for winter. You didn't mention winter. You mentioned the loss of a friend and the meeting of the governor. And
well, because the
yeah.
first winter we were here, everybody said, oh, the winter is so hard. The second winter we were here, they're saying, oh, there's been no winter. We're so sorry. We're so sorry the first winter was so hard. We're so sorry there was no winter. But I lived here 50 years ago when I was a kid, when I was 18, to dance with a modern dancer in Minneapolis. And there, I arrived into a real winter. It was 68 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor. So all of this, like, she's my sister, she's my mother, she's my sister. There's a winter, no winter, too much winter. I don't know. Global warming, I don't know. But it's interesting to use the dial of the year to try to organize the feelings and the hopeful insights.
And Marcia, I want to, when I sometimes when you look at the year as a circle, you might find things that connect across that circle. It's like I noticed like the anniversary of my dog Jackson's death, and then just opposite that 6 months later is getting the cat Baxter. It's just when you lay it out as a circle, you see it differently. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right, would somebody else share, please?
I'll go. Well, I
Okay.
didn't do my homework, so I drew my own.
Thank you,
And-
Maida.
I immediately went to birthdays too. And then it was definitely weather. As to, when we had our last ice storm, we might have it may get cold enough in the winter to turn on the fireplace. Last year it did not, and I didn't turn it on once. And then hurricane season, and of course, hot, which is now 4 or 5 months out of the year instead. It used to be when I was young, it was just August. It was horribly hot.
Yeah.
That's how much it's changed. So
I think in terms of Bayou Culture Collaborative, asking people to think about that change.
mhm.
I'm getting tulips 3 weeks earlier. It's just everything's shifting. Thank you, Maida. Somebody else? Annie?
I also included the hot because summer. Okay, I have to unblur it for y'all to see this, but yeah, that's not gonna work. Hang on. If I can. Might not be able to, but I included summer because it's oppressive. But I noticed the 6 month thing too. With the line that you mentioned on yours, you can't see it on mine, but we have the April festival in Lafayette, and then we have the October festival in Lafayette, which is a pretty big deal for everybody.
Uh-huh.
They're across from each other on the round, so I didn't notice that before. And then just my birthday and my favorite sister's birthday, and all of December, which I call the Festival of Light, Festivals of Light.
All of December. Mark, what'd you do?
I was a bad student.
You didn't do it?
And I wasn't prepared. I didn't print it out ahead of time. And then my computer was too slow.
Well, I'm just going to ask you, you have moved from Lafayette, and Marcia, I failed to introduce you to Mark, just thinking everybody knew everybody, but Mark recently retired from what I consider a dream job as professor of traditional music at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and he's back home in California after
Mhm.
being in exile in Louisiana for X number of years. Exile for your wife, maybe not for you, but
Yeah.
you're back in a different seasonal round. How was it
Right.
when you first moved to Louisiana?
Well, when we first moved to Louisiana, you noticed Mardi Gras in a big way. That's definitely not something the other parts of the country, just they don't feel it that way, But now, after living there for 12 years, I miss that. And my wife's pretty good in the kitchen, and she learned how to make a king cake. And so for the last couple of years, she's made king cake around Mardi Gras. And I would bring it to So I'm singing in a chorus now. And we have like snack duty. So you sign up to bring snacks once every quarter, you know. So I've made sure I signed up for Mardi Gras, around Mardi Gras, so I could bring the king cake to chorus rehearsal and
Now,
indoctrinate
does she
everybody.
make that French kind that's got almond in the middle, or does she make that kind with the colored icing?
Uh, I'm not really familiar with all the different kinds. I just know
Uh-huh.
she has a recipe that we got from her friend that she likes because it's not too sweet.
I'll bet it's the French one,
Yeah,
like Poupar's Bakery.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just kind of something that we took away from Louisiana, you know.
So you'll still mark that time of the year.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
and speaking of snack duty, Mark, one of the things we've started doing at our workshops in New York State, where we have a 2-day workshop every year in a different community, is to ask people on day 2 to bring a regional snack. And I bring Route 11 potato chips, Marcia, from Virginia. And Lisa brings Rick Bayless's salsa and a particular kind of corn chips from Chicago. But it's amazing what kinds of things people have for snacks that are regional. We think, oh, everything's the same, and it isn't. You know, last year in Binghamton we got Speedies. I was like, what's a Speedy? Anybody know what a Speedy is? It's like a chicken kebab, but it's like super vinegary and lots of oregano on it. And the New York Times just had a chicken Speedy recipe and said, this is from Binghamton, New York. That's it, the only place.
Interesting. It sounds very Greek.
Yeah.
So who knows what the Greek community is
Oh,
like
and
in
you
Binghamton?
marinate the chicken for 24 hours.
Sounds very Greek.
Susan or Lola, you want to share?
Susan, you're muted.
Am I unmuted now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to do artwork, but I didn't. I don't know if you can see that. The light's so weird in here.
Oh, you
You
do
got
have
it.
colored
Right.
markers. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Lighting and where am I upside down? No. Okay. So I have like yeah, 2 nieces and 7 well, 9 great nieces and nephews. So I always do cards for them. So I didn't get all their cards on. It takes too many. So they're in all different months and they're all spread out. So I try to keep up with that. And we have a peach festival in the summer and in June. It's now moved to early June. There are hardly any peaches. So I try to get peaches every weekend and eat as many as I can in June and July because then they're gone and they're not any good. And in July the 4th, I do this really weird thing where I walk 2 blocks to a bridge over the downtown railroad track and we watch the fireworks that are like on the other side of town from the bridge. In 10 minutes. So that's what that is. And let's see, I have Easter Rock, which either happens in March or April, and that's my big research project and my dear beloved ritual that I love to go to and help with. And so that takes up a lot of preparation in March or April, whenever it happens to fall. It's like Mardi Gras, it follows the moon because it's always on Easter Eve. And so I didn't really finish, but like Patty, I have AFS in there big time. That takes up a lot of time prepping for that even before and getting all your reservations and blah blah. So I think those are kind of the highlights, but I need more time and I need a bigger enlarged one to do my kind of artwork. Which probably should be with the quilt pieces. Maybe that would be better for me.
Well, I have a question about the peaches. They've just been in season here in Central Virginia, maybe 3 weeks ago. We're a lot later than you all. But are you all having to move the festival in Ruston because of the climate change?
Used to there were barely any peaches at the 1st of June, but it seems like the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I don't know. We've had more peaches coming in late May. They did move the festival from the middle or last part of June to early part of June, mainly because they thought it wouldn't be so hot, but it has been. Well, like I think year before last, I passed out at the festival from just standing there eating my peach ice cream and
Wow.
just
Yeah.
fell out with heat exhaustion from running around all day without enough water. So
Well,
it
I
has,
saw a really profound video of the Easter Rock folks with the McIntosh County Singers
oh yes.
that Heather Hodges pulled together.
Oh, is she putting that out there? I hadn't seen that she
I
put
saw it
that.
on LinkedIn. I never am on LinkedIn,
Oh.
and I just happened to see it. It's so profound.
Yeah, we went, oh, I didn't even put that on there, but in the end of June this year, we went to New Orleans, the Easter Rock and and it wasn't the Macintosh, actually, it was the Gullah Geechee Ring Shouters.
Okay.
And they came over from Darien, Georgia, and Easter Rock came down from Winsboro, and they were there for 5 performances for 6 days. And they're going to be on NPR on American Roots sometime in the upcoming year. And also maybe the Smithsonian or somebody's going to produce a recording of the things that they did together the last day. They went to the studio and did some really nice work with that. But
That's
Patty,
great.
can you share the
I will
YouTube
send
link?
it to you eventually, Marcia, not tonight. And Marcia, yeah. Lola, you want to tell us about your year?
Sure. Thank you. I've been enjoying hearing about everybody's too. I also agree I need more time and space, and it's interesting how these like different facets of our lives get categorized. When really it's all just overlaid, of course, like personal life, work, the seasons, what's happening in nature. But yeah, so I didn't get like as illustrative as I would have if I had more time. But I would say, well, my my new year, I usually feel like happens in the springtime. And probably because that's when my birthday is. But it also, I mean, I actually would like to, of course, acknowledge in January, 12th night's a big thing. And my partner's birthday is January 19th. And he's also shares that with Dolly Parton, birthday twin. But and he's very like numerology oriented. So the number 119 is his lucky number. So it's also a number that I see all the time everywhere. So I drew like a big 19 in January. I don't know if you can see it, but that kind of that number rules the start of the year for sure. And then of course Mardi Gras season. And with the like federal heritage months, planning for those and celebrating with work. Think about Black History Month in February, and Valentine's Day. Those are the 2 things I wrote, but obviously Mardi Gras is happening. And then of course springtime comes in, and it's a big one for me, especially like the conjunction of St. Joseph's Day and the spring equinox, because they're either on the same day or a few days apart. And I celebrate them together. And I come from a family that like I grew up in the tradition and have continued it and have you know practiced it with other people who are in the tradition and have been like carrying it on. So that's a big one. And then I have Irish heritage as well, among other things. But so that month of March is a big celebratory one in New Orleans, and that I resonate with culturally. And of course, yeah, into April, springtime, you know, you see like all the azaleas start to bloom. I always look for the spiderwort, which is a favorite native plant, and that I have a volunteer patch that's been growing for like 10 years in my garden. Um, and then April festival season. And then yeah, I would have, there's certainly a lot to like think about and fill in, but June, July, and August, I didn't even mention the heat, although that's been obviously an issue, but I just have written busy, 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 because it's sort of our high season at work, being informal educators. Everyone's at the Children's Museum. And so it's just, we never had like a summer slowdown, nor did we, yeah, at work or with our other creative endeavors. It was just hustle and getting through it all. So I look forward to, well, I don't know if it ever slows down really. It should. It'd be nice. It'd be nice, but I guess we like to stay busy. And then you know, in although I did adopt a new practice on the summer solstice, which I learned about through my, let's just say the Italians, but my, you know, other friends of Italian American descent, and making Acqui di San Giovanni. So it's on the feast of Saint John, which is on the summer solstice. And you know, you gather a large amount of different blooming flowers and herbs, and you place it in a water overnight, and then the water in the morning is supercharged and powerful, and then you bathe in it. And so I like, and it's just like, it's supposed to be the plants are at their most potent. So that was a really lovely tradition that I hope to continue.
That is
And
really cool that you've got something new like
Mhm.
that. Yeah. Well, you mentioned work and how it combines. People have started, some of my teachers started using this to plan their school year together. It's like,
Mhm.
I've always wanted to work with you, but now I see why you're only available this 1 week in January. Can we do our project then? So for people to be able to see what each other's year is like at work and how
Yeah.
they might be able to plan together is another way of using this. And I had promised that I would show you guys how to make a seasonal round collage base. And Lola, this is something you can do with families for Family Folklore Day. So you can get a pizza round, a cake round, a bakery, a pizza place might give them to you. Michael's and craft stores have them, but you can also just use a paper plate. I went ahead and poked 2 holes in using a pair of scissors. And so, again, I got to credit George Zavala with teaching me how to do this. I just pulled some string out of my junk drawer, and I'm going to string it through the 2 holes.
Only one junk drawer?
I moved, I downsized. I got a gift closet. So this is
Didn't say
kind
how
of
big it is.
shredding. This is kind of shredding, but you string it through, and then it's here on the back. You tie it here because you're going to want to hang them and have a little art show, so you can have a gallery walk. So you tie it off so you can hang it. But as George pointed out, it's going to flop. So you just take a piece of tape, masking tape or Scotch tape, and just tape it on the back so that it's not going to flop. Voila, it's not flopping. So you can ask people to choose one holiday, the whole year, whatever they want to do, and they can use, you know, any kind of collage fabric. Marcia, you're into collages right now. I did it on a little dessert paper plate of just choosing New Year's Eve. I used to have a big New Year's Eve party that Marcia would come to. Out on my deck would ring bells at midnight, and so I just used it to represent one holiday. But you can use all kinds of collage material or not. You can just draw. And I wanted to show you, I wanted to start thinking about I'm going to share the screen again, the Bayou Culture Collaborative and what the seasonal round could like maybe do. Mary Hufford is a folklorist who was at the American Folk Life Center, and she worked with the Sierra Club in a forest in Appalachia, where the Sierra Club was overlooking local knowledge, but this was a very important forest in the Ice Age, because a lot of species hung out. So the Sierra Club about 20 years ago started looking at this forest as a place for species to hang out as the planet heats up. But they just plow in, don't talk to anybody. They're complaining, oh, the locals, blah, blah, blah. So they hired Mary to come and do field work. And of course, she found deep generational knowledge of the forest, and got people together over maps. And the Sierra Club is calling it this, and other people, the local people are calling it something else. They're not even talking about the same place because they're calling it something different. So this is on the American Folk Life Center's website. If you click on any of the text, it will go to the field work for that topic. So there'll be audio, there'll be photographs, but I'm not sure how this shows up, but what she learned was how people were clocking the loss of species and how the harvesting of ginseng, for example, had changed. So that gets indicated on this calendar, what used to happen and what happens now. And then there's one more at a teacher. There are a lot of people from Guam and Boise, Idaho, who are at the Air Force base there. And this darling teacher from Guam, I gave them this as homework to do because it was a weekend-long course. And she, her heart was torn because she lives in Idaho, but she lives in Guam. And she realized they were kind of shaped alike. So she had to make two. She just couldn't do one. So she has her life in Guam and her life in Idaho. And in her head, she's always in Guam, even if she's in Idaho. So I was thinking about this in terms of so much of the work that you all are doing with people who might have to move, people who are going to go someplace totally different. And for the people who live in those receiver communities to realize the seasonal round is so different from folks, you know, if you've come from Homa and you got to go to Shreveport. So are there ways that you guys can think of for using this in your work, or that you think would be helpful to other people in BCC or where you work?
I mean, this would be really good to do with immersion teachers as they come into Louisiana.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Marcia, a lot of French teachers come to teach in the French immersion schools, but they come from France. And they are sometimes living in very small towns in
Yeah.
Louisiana. Three of
other
them came to a
Francophone countries.
workshop that I did, and they were
Yeah.
just desperate to get to the city. That'd be very interesting. And we have it in French on Louisiana Voices.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
I could definitely see it being used like as a facilitated activity in an informal setting, like our museum, where you don't know who all will join. You know, it's a random sampling of whoever our guests at the museum. You can invite them to sit down and create it together with their family, and then invite them to share and compare, or like hang them up and walk around and see. And then easily facilitate a bit of like a micro cultural exchange. You might have people who live in the same place, but they can see similarities and differences.
They experience that same place differently.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to get at, the smaller bits of folklore, whether it's foodways or customs or decoration, clothing. Bye, Annie. I'm going to be in Lafayette for a festival. find me.
I'll see you there.
Okay, great to
And- and
see you.
And you know, I have a foot in, I'm working somewhat with some doctors in Louisiana who are very involved with, excuse me, I guess a cheap version would be called eco-anxiety. You know, what the trauma is emerging from climate change and living in Louisiana. And I think that this could be a wonderful tool to help, I don't even have the words for it yet. You know, mitigate sounds kind of cheap, but to help frame, and then once you can frame it, try to deal with the what they refer to medically as the anticipatory trauma. You know, as the environment begins to go through certain, you know, upheavals. And I didn't mean to sound like a northerner, because I am, but I think it could be a wonderful tool.
Well, Marcia, I'd like to talk to you more about what you're doing here, because we are working on developing a mental health workshop on trauma that will be offered to planners and such.
I would love Maida to talk with you about that.
I'll connect you to by email.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the next focus for our workshops is planners. And I'm thinking that this might be an interesting exercise to help them think about the changing habitats and how it relates to them personally. Do the fishing season still match up with the fish, the hunting, and the changes, kind of like how I responded about, hot weather used to be in August and now it's 4 and 5 months. But it kind of drills home the immediacy of it, that we're living this. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people can kind of push out of their mind and just keep doing what they need to do,
I saw a headline that I didn't read about some town taking advantage of the heat and saying, oh, come here, it's really hot. We're going to have all these sprinklers out for you and it's going to be great fun. And I'm like, no, it's not fun. It's just, we had a terrible heat wave here. July was like August. And now that it's August, last night we had the coldest night we've ever had in August. It was 53.
Last night.
Yes. And I went outside before coming in here and it's going down to 60 tonight. I'm like, whoa. Very unusual.
We've had a cool wave here that everybody's talking about how it was only in the 80s in the morning.
I went on the best walk of my entire summer on Monday morning by the lake. It was, yeah, ideal.
Well, I have a resource slide that's going to be in the slideshow that gets put up by this. And Lola, I don't think my comments on the slideshow should go in. Can I send you another one for you to publish for everybody?
Of course.
Yeah. So the resources are on that, and I don't think there's anything that you all don't know about that's in my resource list. It's, Louisiana Voices, local learning, Journal of Folklore and Education.
Actually, that requires a certain amount of editing, and so if you could throw it up here so that we have a visual.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We don't do that much editing to these things.
All right,
Easy to
then
cut
let's
out,
do
like
it.
this conversation right now. But if we can capture. your
Excellent.
resources.
I wasn't thinking about our broadcasting audience.
Great idea.
There we go.
Yeah.
And there are 2 articles in the Journal of Folklore that are directly related to those coastal parishes where you all work with BCC. And then last year we had 2 articles by Jane Vadrine on Lush Pie, and then her minding the archives for her work with Anne Savoy and one of the CDs they made. So Louisiana's been represented in JFE. Our new issue will launch in September on Shifting Ground. Migration, Disruption, and the Contours of Home. So I'll look for that in September.
Awesome.
So for those of you going to the American Folklore Society meeting, the local learning happy hour is at 4 o'clock on Friday in the hotel bar. And Lisa's doing an interesting workshop with a city lore artist who now teaches in Albuquerque High School. And his work on students interviewing and turning interviews into graphic novels and comics. So that's what the Saturday morning workshop is going to be this year. And I'm just going to have a round table.